welcome back as we dive into a vitally important conversation for all of us. And I mean, yes, we are broadening the circle right now. The 2025 BRICS Summit has wrapped with some bold promises about AI, about digital trade and collaboration across the global south. We'll call it for South Africa in particular. This could mean new opportunities for jobs, for tech innovation, and I think we're seeing it all around us already, and trade, most importantly, but also some tough questions about readiness that we're going to have to grapple with. Will these big agreements actually filter down into public systems like education, like health care, where it can have such a massive impact, government services, service delivery, where the tires hit the tar, and how do we balance economic growth with responsible AI use? Well, we're going to need some help unpacking this, and we are joined by Professor Willem Fourie, and we shall know him as Willem, okay, Big Willie from now on, from Stellenbosch University's Policy Innovation Lab. He's an expert in AI policy for the Global South, and then we've got our very good friend, tech content creator Grant Hines, who translates big tech changes into tools people can use every day and also translates things into words that we can understand.
I wish I was a prof. That sounds so much cooler.
I have a feeling you are cut from a very similar cloth, so ask the right questions, my friend, and we'll break it down for you. Now, I love the fact that both of you are here to look at this from two sides, so thank you so much. Willem, I've got to ask, what are the biggest commitments now? Because on the surface of it, it looks like we've got an opportunity here, a golden fleece, if you will, in AI to do so much so quickly. So what are the positives? What are the big commitments that have jumped off the page for you?
You know, these agreements are super long, and it's basically impossible to summarize the whole thing. But for me, three things stood out. So the one thing is that the presidents of the BRICS countries said AI presents a massive opportunity for the developing world to really transform our economies. And I think that's great, because that needs to be underlined. But AI needs to be governed well. So they say we need to do it together. I know people often think, what's the use of presidents meeting in these capitals, talking for hours upon end? When it comes to AI, it's useful, because AI is deployed globally by global companies, and we need to work together to do it.
And those are systems exactly. That are being employed every day, and that speaks to reaching the people, which is great. Do you feel like this tech, this innovation is going to reach to you as a content creator, as someone who leans into that space here in South Africa? What got you excited about what you've seen?
Well, yes, good governance is a big deal, and this is something that I've been talking about and preaching on the show for a long time, is that a lot of the data that we've handed over to corporations, and those corporations often aren't in our BRICS Summit, they're in these third-party affluent countries. They are mining that data to create these systems and then making us reliant on those systems. And I keep on using it as like the example of like data was this new age colonization, and we have the new world order is AI. And this new world order is being enforced on. Whether you like it or not, we're going to all be using it in different aspects of our jobs.
Because it's systemic.
And we have to own it. We have to take ownership. If we give it over to these wealthy corporations, what we're doing is we're doing exactly the same thing that we did with land back in the day, or colonizers.
Well, we've seen what they've done with data in the social media space, and that kind of paints a very clear picture of where we might head. Are we ready for the agency that's going to come with this? Because, and I use that word agency because that, I think, terrifies me when it comes to AI, when you're pushing so much through one gateway and we are no longer making that choice. And I know I'm grossly oversimplifying here, but it kind of feels like it. Are we ready in terms of policy and how we can embrace AI on a bigger scale?
I mean, the reality is the genie's out of the bottle. We use AI every day, even a humble...
So it doesn't matter whether we're ready.
Exactly, we need to deal with it. That's the first thing, and in my work I get to do really with a lot of countries around the world, and the point is no country is completely ready. No policymaker is ready. Why? Because we have not thought through the real implications of AI. So what do we need? And it's super tricky. We need policy systems that react much faster than they do. But the genie's out of the bottle, and we need to figure it out.
And I've seen within the Chinese kind of ecosystem, through one of their major corporations, the major corporation coming out of China, how it can work in the collective's good, where you're suddenly seeing failed ports being the most successful because they just need to lean on infrastructure. That's great, but it needs to filter down. At the moment, if you're going to get help to boost your AI capability, you're probably not going to get it from South Africa, or you're going to go, so how do we prepare to make the most of these opportunities within AI from a South African perspective?
Well, for data, firstly, needs to be employed to create that AI, right? So you need like lots and lots of information. So that's why also all these countries getting together is great, because we can share our data between us and then make better systems.
Bigger AI brains.
The more information we have, the more that we can train with, right? And that's how you can get ports up and running and that kind of stuff. A lot of people talk to me about creative and generative AI. And that's also a huge conversation, because we have African artists who are uploading their work on socials to get work or to get contracts, and having their work mined for generative AI. And those are really cool. You guys are doing some really cool stuff, hoping to get royalties back to creatives that are, willingly handing a creative over to be trained. And if people are using our data, right, to create their new creative stuff, we can receive royalties. And that's something that you don't see with these affluent Western countries with what they're doing with their stuff. It's like it's happening in BRICS,
yeah.
Which is awesome.
Well, the beautiful thing here is, and I think why there's so much investment, I certainly I talk about Chinese interest here because of the social development element, which means money being spent is going to help people, and I love that. That it's almost like this inversion of the value chain, which is absolutely wonderful. But what are the big risks? If we go too far, too fast, what could the potential fallout be?
Yeah, for me, I mean, people say policy making is like three-dimensional chess. I mean, I can barely play one-dimensional chess, but there's like three-dimensional chess.
I have a feeling you might be okay. I have a feeling.
Just because he's got glasses doesn't mean he's good at chess.
You think you could beat him? Okay, this is a challenge now. Okay, no, I'm joking.
Three-dimensional chess. I'm just going to bring it back now. And policymakers, I mean, we're going to make a big mistake if we only focus on the opportunities or only focus on the risks. Weirdly, the policymakers need to focus on both at the same time. For me, education is a great example. For the first time in the history of humanity, we can do personalized education now with AI, where you can teach a kid what that kid needs, and you can really progress at the speed of what that kid needs to progress. And you can sort of explain it in ways that the kid understands. Fantastic opportunity. It can transform education. Yet, at the same time, it's been shown that the bad use of AI makes you dumber. It de-skills you.
Critical thinking disappears.
I mean, because the machine does all the thinking. So the question is, how do policymakers craft policies that balance the benefits and the risks? And I think that's the $1 trillion question.
I love the fact that it's releasing the genius in those geniuses around me that I can see, which is amazing. Do you notice how I looked at both of you as I said that? I consider you that, Grant, and I would imagine you're also very, very good at chess. Now, the bottom line is technology has reached an event horizon that we have to look at both the negative and the positive in the same conversation, because it's happening so quickly. Can you adapt? Can we set the policy in place to protect the person on the ground floor? Those questions will be answered by our geniuses after this. Now, think about it from your own perspective, how potentially these new digital opportunities, this AI opportunity, could help you. And we'll continue in a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Oh, welcome back, and welcome back to our amazing panel. We are talking BRICS, we are talking AI. We've heard the big picture promises, but what do they actually mean for you and for me? From gaming and digital side hustles to online businesses to the big systems of service delivery, AI is already reshaping how South Africans earn, how we learn, how we interact with technology and money. But are we ready to keep up, and are we being protected while doing so? Is the policy ready? Professor Willem Fourie and Grant Hines are here to help us break it all down. Grant, I'm going to jump onto you right now because you are very passionate about tech, and I think you live in the space where tech meets humanity now, not in universities, not at the tip of the spear, but where content creators use it. How do you see opportunities being created with this thrust, this lean into AI and tech?
Well, the big one is I think that services that we create as BRICS are going to be very valuable to us, because I think there's a big reliance on services that have been created on a legacy of data. We're just talking about it now, that over the past couple of decades, we have been giving big companies like Meta our information, and that information is translated into these services. But if we can get together rapidly through BRICS and take our data, take ownership of our data, and create services that we can use where we have some form of blockchain ownership or something around that. That to me is really exciting.
And that's accessible. I mean, we've got towns in the middle of nowhere running on Bitcoin in South Africa, you know, like in the Karoo, I think, you know, so it's possible, it's accessible.
And I think it's more tangible. Our information is way more tangible than Bitcoin because it's got productive value to it, you know.
Are we good with our data? Has our government protected our data? You talk about the deals that could potentially be made. I can see a deal happening where we sell South Africa's data to Meta, for instance, because it makes sense on paper. That's not an impossibility in the way that data gets misused. I know I'm again grossly oversimplifying, but are we going to be able to, South Africans, be safe in knowing that our data is protected in these big moves?
I mean, we have a lot of great pieces of legislation in place. The Constitution, fantastic, protects our dignity. We have POPIA. We have a lot of great anti-discrimination laws. I think Grant made a great point that we often forget, though, is that we very often willingly hand over our own
I was going to ask, are we giving the data away before our government even smells it? Yeah.
Exactly. Our data is more often than not stolen from us. We're giving it away. And I think there's a great rule of thumb. Certainly when you use these large language models, your ChatGPTs and stuff, if you're not paying with money, you are paying with something else.
Sure.
And
that data is expensive because that's what people at home are probably going, that's fine, I'll give over my data. That data is more valuable than you can understand.
Yeah, no, they're training their machines on it, and then once your data is in the machine, there's no way you can get it out again.
And they want to keep you there so that that brain is living and growing, so that working
And then they rent
model
it back to you.
Yeah.
So that you have to, and we're reliant on these services, and we have to pay for them every single month. And then once we're out of the economy, we can't. This is where it gets,
And then you've got to ask it to move your money around because you've given it agency to look after all your money, to look and grow your money and protect your money and do wonderful things with your money. But now you no longer have
But this is why that land analogy is so important. If we don't own it, we're going to have to pay somebody to use it. And that's not a good position to be.
So I've seen a situation where in healthcare, introducing an AI system and the digital back end, suddenly the 10 schools in the area had access to internet, every child was on one digital footprint, everyone is rising together. The opportunities within systems are massive. How could this really help South Africa in terms of those service delivery hit points, the pressure points within underserved communities? Where do you think the greatest leaps are going to come?
There are many things governments do that are supposed to be super predictable. Applying for an ID, for a passport, for a traffic license, for whatever type of license. Those things can easily be automated by
Pick up my phone, scan my face, cheers.
That should be easy. And I know in South Africa we're driving digital public infrastructure massively currently.
It's happening,
where they say we need digital ID for all citizens, digital payment systems. The data needs to be safe and secure and interoperable. But anyway, sort of those predictable services, I don't think we need to wait in lines at Home Affairs anymore. There are certain more complicated things where I think we need to hang on a bit, but there are really low-hanging fruit in the departments of Home Affairs, cooperative governance, in your municipality. Even, I mean, thinking of paying your municipal bills and stuff, that should be much, much easier.
You do understand there is going to be an immediate pushback, and I say that with absolute love because I've grown up in this country and I've worked within the biggest organizations that represent this. But we like hiding behind our red tape, and when you release a lot of that red tape, you're going to have a natural pushback. So I think a lot of the fear is not necessarily that AI is going to take my job. It's going to force us to work on a different level and be a lot more effective, which is beautiful. How worried do we need to be about protecting ourselves through this process? And I'll put this to both of you. How can we inform policy moving forward, maybe inform the spaces within our schools, in education, in healthcare that affect us directly? What should we be shouting from the rooftops? How should we be embracing this new era?
Yeah, I think as citizens, we should be a little bit more reflective on how we use these systems. We think it's easy to use. You just dump your information on everything.
Doing it for me, yeah.
Exactly. You know, what can go wrong? I mean, if it's too easy, sometimes you need to ask a couple of questions. So I think we need to educate ourselves a bit better, and we should be a little bit more reflective on how we use these systems. And then if you talk about misinformation, when we use social media is optimized to keep us there as long as possible using AI. I think we should step out of our bubbles. We should not just sort of keep on scrolling, keep on watching videos, but we should also go to more reputable websites and stuff, really also to counter misinformation driven by AI.
And young people are investigating, and I love the fact that we've got experts out there on the 90s and 2000s. It makes me feel so old now. I'm like, why? That's not history, that's still the current. We're still in the 2000s. I absolutely love that. Within this framework, We want to make the most of these opportunities, but we don't want to lose our superpower, our ability to feel and our ability to use critical thinking and combine those two things. What advice do you have in the tech space, Grant, to make the most of AI?
I think embracing this technology is a good thing. And I think that you might have heard a lot of negative things about it, but I think that it is the future. It's the same thing as Googling. We're going to look back at this
It's the internet of this space, yeah.
We're going to watch this on whatever future YouTube later, like 20 years from now. We're going to
Again,
laugh
you're calling
at how...
me history, dude. We're not history yet.
No, this will be history. And you look at
100%.
similar like news pieces done about Google back like 30 years ago and the fear-mongering around that. We can do this responsibly. We just need to steer it. It's a ship that's going in a certain direction. That's why policy is so important and why letting the government take a look at what we're doing instead of corporations is very important. And there's so many ways we can do it ethically. You can run large language models on your phone locally through apps now, which is really exciting. So understand it, embrace it.
And that's very much the South African way. You know, there's some kid cooking up something like that to sidestep every major telecoms company in the world right now, because South Africans love doing that sort of thing. And then hopefully he'll get his 500 billion when it comes out. Just to put it all in perspective, gents, I can remember being taught what a mouse was with an actual little plastic mouse that was showing us what a mouse was. And looking at this computer, I am, buddy, I know. Now, if you want to know more about any of what we've been talking about, go get a university degree, and the professor will teach you officially. But thank you so much.
Like.
Exactly, and I would imagine his classes are really fun. He doesn't go by the prof there either. You guys are amazing.
Opal Graham.
Opal Graham,
Yeah, okay,
thank
cool.
you. And that's going to stick now, be careful. Okay, well, we can always put back in what life takes out, and it generally starts with movement. So let's energize on this Monday morning.